Are you looking to take the next step toward investing in commercial real estate but don't know where to go? CRE Central offers a comprehensive education and coaching platform designed to help you get started. Our online courses cover a wide range of topics, from the fundamentals to advanced strategies, ensuring you have the knowledge and skills needed to thrive in this competitive industry. As a member, you'll gain access to our exclusive online community and monthly group coaching calls, providing you with valuable networking opportunities and personalized guidance from experienced professionals. Whether you're a beginner or looking to take your career to the next level, CRE Central has the resources you need. Visit www.crecentral.com to learn more. Welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Investor Podcast. We are live from the Cobble Group Studios here in East Nashville. And today we're going to be diving into a great conversation with my good friend Josephine Saffert. Did I say friend? I meant friend. Josephine. Josephine is a German native. She immigrated to the United States not too long ago. She is a D1 track athlete, former track athlete. So, of course, we're going to be diving into that and kind of how that has shaped your mentality coming into commercial real estate. And she also got started in real estate and has grown into a real estate developer. And now she's actually got her own real estate development program where she's teaching people how to do this. And she actually runs a real estate happy hour with me every month, which is actually, if you're listening to this live, it is tomorrow at 5 p.m., July 3rd, at the Wash in East Nashville. Come hang out with us. We want to hang out with you. But, Josephine, that was a very light introduction. So tell us a little bit more about your background and kind of how you got here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here. Really excited.
Of course.
Well, yeah, I first came as a student athlete in 2011, D1 running track, 400 meter, 400 hurdles, and was just turned 19 years old. And that sort of was the start to the whole journey. I wouldn't be here without sports, so it has had an immense impact. It was also my first creative financing because without that scholarship, I just wouldn't have found a way. So that's really how I got to the U.S. And then real estate, I would say, is more so how I ended up staying here, being able to stay here. Yeah.
Yeah, talk me through that, because that was something I had never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
In order for you to get your green card, you
Yeah.
couldn't do the type of real estate you were doing.
Right.
So tell us more about that.
Yeah, right. So I graduated in 2016, and I have a finance background. I actually had a Wall Street offer for just M&A, investment banking. And then, thought I was kind of covered, was thinking, I'm just going to move to Manhattan. And then ultimately what ended up happening is that immigrations hit. And so that investment bank just couldn't sponsor. It was like right 2015, 16. So, as a foreigner here, as an international student, you or any kind of like Wall Street program, you've got to get into that a year plus before. So anyway, so long story short, that whole entrepreneurial journey started in 2016 whenever I couldn't proceed with investment banking. So I had to get really creative. And so joined a tech startup in New York, learned how to raise capital and all that. And from there, I just needed something more tangible, right? And I was thinking, well, what's more tangible than real estate? It's kind of the physical pillar, right? And I ended up moving back to Nashville 2017 November to start the first development firm with a former business partner, just flipping homes, just renovating properties. And so we bought a lot of auction property, REO property, so bank-owned property in Clarksville, Tennessee, Nashville, and then Chattanooga. And so fast forward about a year later, Immigration Services came back and said, well, hold up. Even though this is a multi-million-dollar business, that does not count towards immigrations. So you're recycling value rather than building original value on U.S. soil. And so they were going to turn down my application, which at that point was already pending like over 2.5 years, maybe even 3. And I said, well, what about new construction? How about building ground up on U.S. soil, hiring Americans? Would that work? And yeah, I won my green card, or got the green card 2019 January, but after building 4 homes ground up in Chestnut Hill in Nashville.
That's great. Well, congrats on doing that.
Thank you.
I appreciate everybody jumping in the chat. Apparently there was something going on with my mic beforehand, and I didn't touch anything except for move the volume knob a little bit and move it back to where it was. So if it is working now, please jump in the chat. Let me know. Appreciate you all for saying that my mic was low.
Just for a quick recap of those that might have missed it, I just was introducing Josephine. She's a German native, former D1 track athlete, good friend of mine, and we run a happy hour every month together. So we've been doing business together quite some time. We were actually board members together at the Real Estate Investors of Nashville, which is a time that I certainly cherish. So talk to me about investing. All right, audio is fixed. Thank you, NV Stars. Appreciate you. So talk to me about your experience in real estate development, because typically what we're doing is we're telling people, hey, go invest in real estate for a while, get your feet wet, make sure that you understand that side of the process, because once you start new construction, it's a totally new business, really. Yeah. So talk to me about that first deal that you did. I mean, how did you figure out how to do it? How did you pull the money to get, how the hell did you do it?
It was wild. Actually, at the time, there was no coaching program really out there. We're talking 2018, really. So it was kind of prior to that coaching era, right? And I ended up getting a land use attorney that is now at Metro. And that was one of the best investments.
That's pretty nice.
And so, I basically asked a lot of people a bunch of questions. That's really how I got started. And what I did is, so with this land use attorney, I'd looked at several different sites and was just trying to understand how he was thinking, right? And really going into absolute depth on my questions. And so I figured out pretty quickly what I was looking after. And so at that point in time, it was sort of these like R6 lots. So the lot had to be a minimum of like 6,000 square feet. You could build, 2 homes. But anyway, I ran across this one deal in Chestnut Hill. And it sort of was more used as a community park. It's right Perkins, Hubbard, Lincoln. And it was actually alongside the main former prostitution line in Nashville. Did you know that? Perkins.
Nice.
Yeah. And that was the wildest deal still in my career. It took me 24 banks to underwrite the deal.
Wow.
Yes, redlining is still real.
Of course
that
it
could
is.
be a separate chat. And, not only was the underwriting tough, but also, the crime was really high. It was very high. So I think I've never called the police more often. And also, learned a whole lot about that side of things through this deal. But I ended up, finding a bank that was willing to do the deal. And I raised capital for my first deal. I didn't have any cash of my own when I started. And so I got 2 guys together for the equity and the interest carry. And then the bank, to cover obviously the rest on a debt end. And then, the land use attorney had helped kind of working through some of the beginnings. And the rest I just asked by, going to Metro Codes, asking a lot of questions and taking it from there.
Love it. A couple of questions that come off of that. Where did you find those investors? Like, where did you meet them?
Yeah. That's an interesting question, because I think a lot of people always look to other real estate investors, right? I'm sure you probably see that too. And
because they understand real estate.
Right. And I actually found your first investors, they're like in your network, right? So it was a former sort of brief coworker in New York. I was briefly in the timeshare marketing sales industry for like 5 months before I went off on my own. And then the other guy was essentially a local here that sort of here and there did some real estate deals. And so I paired them up together, and off we went.
Yeah. That's not too dissimilar from my first deal. I mean, one was another developer here in town, and then one was a doctor that I had just known for a few years. And that's funny. Very, very parallel. I just called 2 people as well and, put that deal together. How do you remember the numbers on that deal? Like, was it profitable? How did it work out for you?
I think at the time, we acquired the lot for $250,000. So what is that? 62
for 2 units?
For 4.
4 units?
No
way.
So my first deal had to be 4 units because as an immigrant, I needed a $2 million project.
Oh wow!
I needed a $2 million project. So I ended up building 4 homes. And so sold them for $500,000 each, essentially. So very straightforward. But I acquired the lot for $250,000, which was $62,000 whatever pop. And I think the equity was $175 each, so about $350. And then we ended up. What was the split on this? I did have a former business partner. I think we ended up making about maybe $120 on our side. So the whole deal produced about $240,000 or $250,000 in net profits.
It was probably, what, a 12-month project?
It was a little bit longer because, again, I learned a lot of things on this first deal.
Oh, I bet.
How to vet contractors and, maybe also who not to hire. No, but the builder was very difficult to work with, and we got definitely burned. And so it did take longer. I think it was 16, 18 months or something like that. And also, like, he left us hanging. So, I mean, it was a lot of hard lessons. That's why, when I started the Developer Academy, now I'm kind of pouring this all into others, because you can really shortcut that whole learning curve if you do invest into coaching. Same with your coaching program, right?
Yep.
So,
Yeah. I mean, but even even if it's 18 months, I mean, you're still talking like a 25 to 30% cash on cash return for your investors.
Oh yeah,
I mean, that's really good.
It was a great project.
Yeah. I mean, that's for our first project. Yeah. I'd say that's a home run.
No, it was a good one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So tell us kind of what happened next. Now you've gotten, your first deal done, you've gotten your green card. And now you have the experience going into your second project. So, I mean, what was your next at bat? Kind of how did you start to scale this?
Well, I've had a wild journey. So I ended up actually, my very next one was taking on a rezone for an SP.
Oh gosh, here we go.
So special purpose zoning, and I took it from preliminary to final, and that was a difficult process. And then throughout this process, I ended up splitting from my former business partner. Mm-hmm. And a lot about that. It was very nasty and very costly. And so I ended up pretty much in 2020 losing it all. I mean, I ended up, getting really creative. I continued to build, utilizing like land trusts and just like other investors, and had a family office that backed me. But I ended up having to build a full new firm. And so Saffert Development Group is just about, about 2.5, 3 years old, really. And that was a journey that, I'm really grateful I had early, because I learned so much, but it was really hard lessons. So kind of could write a book on like why not to do 50-50.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I want to dive into the partnerships aspect of it, because a lot of people, when they're first getting into development, they grab onto somebody else, right? The mistake that you made is unbelievably common. Like almost everybody does it. Before we dive into partnerships, though, I want to talk about the rezoning.
Yep.
Why did you decide to take on a rezoning for your second project? What were your takeaways? Because it's brutal. I mean, people don't realize how much work goes into it. And I mean, I had a deal last night completely fall apart because I had a city town hearing, and they decided to vote like 4-1 no.
Sorry to hear.
On rezoning. It's part of it. I mean, really, I'm sorry to hear it for that town, because it's they get to keep a pretty bad hotel instead of an apartment complex. But hey, it is what it is.
I think I wasn't afraid to take on a rezoning project. I was really just in it to learn. I think that's the difference. I was like, well, hold up, this is in preliminary stage. What does it take to go to final? And I just thought, like, look, I can figure this out. Like, I love challenges. I love problems. But I also just like really love and embrace the learning like process, because I believe that whenever you're going through these like harder times or like harder situations, like kind of quirky projects, right? Even parcels, like I build on like triangular shaped parcels. I do I take on a lot of projects that maybe others don't, because I do like to figure it out, and I have found usually that those offer a good return. So it really was more so like I wanted to see the rezoning process, and I wanted to understand that. But I will say today, to really do it in an SP, you would have to pay me really handsomely to do it again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, my brother is a big fan of doing land entitlements. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like something that he just does for fun on the side. But if you're, like, it's tough to make a living having a business that does that, because there's so much that goes into it. I mean, what were your biggest takeaways? Like, if you had to do that all over again, what would you do differently?
You just got to plan in way more time. I think the timeline is the biggest deal. A lot of people keep saying, oh, it's 4 to 6 months. And every time I hear that, I'm like, yes, in theory, you're right. Now,
it should be. It should be 4 to 6 months.
Right.
Yeah.
And if Metro had more AI, it probably is possible. But
just like 3 more employees,
Yeah, and I think we all would help sponsor that. No, I think the timeline is a big deal. I think it's just always calculated too short. I think a lot of times, you pretty much want to budget like 6 to 8, 9 months to at least, have it, right? If you don't need it, great. But yeah.
I mean, here's the thing that I've always said. So if we've got a council member or, hey, if the mayor of Nashville is listening, which I highly doubt, but if we could just double our permit fees, I think almost every developer in Nashville would agree to doubling their permit fees if it meant that 100% of that additional revenue is going towards hiring more employees and making the process more streamlined. Because we're spending more on interest carry alone, having to spend 1 month than we would if you doubled permit fees.
Especially in the last year. I mean, or the last 18 months.
Gosh, yeah.
I mean, what we all pay and carry is wild.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go spend every other developer in Nashville's money, but I think that it would solve the problem. Okay, let's dive into the partnerships aspect of it, because you should never, ever do a 50-50 deal. Tell us why.
Well, there's so many things on why not. Ultimately, roles and responsibilities, a lot of times it's just not equal, right? Like the 50-50 presumes, and it's a presumption that things are equal, and things are not equal unless like you were looking at a perfect scenario, which how often do you have perfect, right? So the odds are already stacked against you just right off the bat. But also things evolve, right? You start with good intentions and you evolve. And for both to grow at the same growth rate, I mean, you're just asking for it. But I also want to make the distinguishing factor that it's a 50-50 in a venture, right? So I see a lot of times people joining LLCs together for a development deal. I actually changed my structure. Now we do JV agreements so we own 100% of the LLC, and then we enter a JV agreement with the investors. Because what that does, it keeps it clean, right? Even if you were to say, hey, it's a 50-50 on a deal, that's a different story than 50-50 in an LLC, because the government doesn't distinguish between this just being for the sake of a project versus actually a new business, new venture. And once you're in an LLC 50-50, to get out of that, good luck.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nightmare. And there are some ways to get around it. I mean, you could have 50-50 financial rights, but you could have 51-49 voting rights, right? And so, just to clarify that, because I know some people are like, oh, well, why couldn't you structure it this way? Yeah, you absolutely could. And here's the thing, like, I would rather be the 49% partner than a 50-50 partner, because at 100%. Least then it doesn't matter how much I disagree, somebody else is making the decision, fine, right? And so it's important, just like pick who is going to be more invested in this deal. Yeah. If it's you, argue for the 51.
I think just even distinguishing between the compensation versus like the governing rights, right, is a big deal. But when you get started, I mean, first of all, a lot of people just lack the experience when you get started, right? And then second off, like, people are afraid to have hard conversations. Yeah. A lot of times people started with maybe someone that they knew for a while, a good friend, close friend, or a family friend, right? And it's difficult to have those hard conversations. But what I've learned is, unless you have these hard conversations right off the bat, you're just not setting yourself up, or even your friendship, your relationship, for success. So, yeah, I think, like, to your point, I would also rather be the 49% than 50-50.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, your operating agreement is there for a worst case scenario. Figure it out on the front end.
But it's up to interpretation, right?
Yeah, that's
some attorneys drew it up. You gotta be paying to now interpret what was initially intended, and in the U.S., the legal system are expensive. Yeah, it's pro attorney.
Yeah, it's very pro attorney. Attorneys win every time. All right, if you are joining us live, looks like we've got over 30 or about 30 of you. If you're joining us live and you have any questions on getting started in real estate development, drop those in the live chat. Josephine and I will get over to those. In the meantime, Josephine, when it comes to keeping the lights on, like as a real estate developer, when you're first getting started, that is not an easy prospect, right? Because like you said, that project took you 18 months before you made $120,000 that you split with your partner. So when it comes to keeping the lights on as a developer, what are you doing to just make sure you're at least covering your bills while you're waiting for a project to finish?
Yeah, similar to you. I mean, we're vertically integrated. So actually, we've had like a realtor team that I started also amidst that legal battle back in 2020. And as of last week, we have our brokerage. So the Saffert
Congrats.
Real Estate. Yeah, thank you. So that's been really exciting. I just really want to fix more that sales side, especially in the residential space. But we actually do have some commercial aspects to it as well. A lot of builders, like a lot of development focus. And so, the brokerage, the realtor side is one aspect. Obviously, we now have the academy as well, which, has been fantastic. It's now a nationwide community. So really excited to connect with members, all throughout the U.S. And then we've had a wholesale operation, Obviously, during this market, I think wholesaling is just a little bit more difficult. But in 2021, for example, when I got started, my very first wholesale deal, I netted about $500,000. I packaged 10 homes and sold them to a hedge fund.
That's great.
So that's kind of I think just being more well-rounded, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Think about what you're going to be doing as a real estate developer anyway. You're going out there, you're probably looking at off-market deals. There'll be some good opportunities that maybe just don't make sense for what you're trying to do. So how can you still make money on those deals, right? Well, there's a hedge fund or a REIT that wants to buy that, right? You probably wouldn't be a buyer for 10 homes, but you might know one. Yep. Same thing with certain pieces of land. Maybe a piece of land needs to be entitled and you don't want to go through that process. Well, you could flip it to another developer that in your network. Of course, you get your real estate license and start brokering these deals as well. There's so many different ways for you to keep the lights on. Because, let's be honest, your first project, second, third projects, you're probably not going to be making enough money over that, timeline to justify not working on anything else.
Yeah, I also think, as long as you set up the development deals right, you have a lot of time in between, right? Because it's more so the project start and exit that requires a lot of time if you hire the right builders. Right. And I think in between, you have time to set up other ventures or be involved in other facets of real estate.
What does your team look like today? Now that you've built up the processes and systems around running a real estate development company.
Yeah.
So what does it look like in terms of employees? What does it look like in terms of vendors, contractors? How are you kind of accomplishing these deals?
So right now we're definitely the smallest team that we've been in a few years. I think up until about December we were about 12 people total. Right now we're roughly about 5 to 7. And so I utilize a lot of VAs too. I love virtual assistants just because they're remaining laser focused on something. So I just have found that if you keep them in their one line, that you're just going to get a lot more output than having sort of one person try to do all.
Yeah. I think that is, I think that's very prudent, right? I grew my development company to 4 or 5 people at one time, and now we're down to 2. We're still handling all of these projects with 2 people. Yeah, because, you start to look at it and you're like, yeah, do we really need a full-time analyst? Well, no, we're only acquiring 1 or 2 real deals a year. I can underwrite them, right? Do we really need an operations manager? Well, no, because that's the 4th employee. You know what I mean? There's things that you start to kind of realize. It's actually, it's a lot better to run it lean because then I don't have to make as much money on every single deal. I don't have to do as many capital raises. I don't have to. It just becomes a much better oiled machine. I
think, the marketing side obviously takes a lot of time. You have a marketing engine. So we're currently recruiting for a new marketing coordinator, actually. So we're looking to bring someone new in. And the marketing side, I think, is the most time intense, where you just really need a team. You need people that can help edit, build funnels, website things. And
Yeah, you've got to have that. Well, if you're good at marketing and you're listening to this podcast, reach out to Josephine. Yeah. She's currently hiring. Josephine, kind of wrapping it up. What are the key lessons, key takeaways, best pieces of advice you would give to other aspiring real estate developers as they're kind of jumping into the market?
Yeah, I think hire slow, fire fast is definitely important. I think people are also afraid to fire builders.
Okay, let's unpack that one because you've mentioned it a few times. Talk to us about bad contractors.
Well, I think where do I start? I think it's just super important to align the incentives. I think that's all. I think that just a lot of times I see, some guys also either doing 50-50 with a builder or I've actually heard, and I'm curious if you've heard this, but over the last 2 years that some essentially new developers actually had the builder submit for draws directly to the banker.
Oh, hell no. Absolutely not. Why?
That was my question.
That's insane. Okay, for those of y'all that are listening that are not familiar with the commercial real estate development process, as a developer, you're the one getting the loan on the property.
It's your head that rolls.
That's right. It's your head that rolls. Your contractor is then, adhering to a budget that you set. They submit to you the draws, you review them, look at them compared to the budget, say yes or no, and then you submit that to the bank for payment. If your contractor is doing that directly, there is nothing stopping them from saying, actually, on this draw, I want a 50% contractor fee, or fluffing up the numbers.
Yeah. I think, always ask for backup invoices. I think that's something too that a lot of guys are not comfortable asking. Just, and so we have the process that I have a full bookkeeper.
Oh, yeah.
And she actually, before even I look at an invoice, she will make sure that we have the backup invoices, and she will cross-verify that those make sense. And only then I go in and say, okay, hey, this is approved, it's not. And I'm not afraid to ask questions. I will throw it back of like, hey, why is this, at this number?
And that way, we won't pay it otherwise.
Right. And also you learn that way, right? Like the more you spend, the more you obsess about the line items, the more you obsess about just, making sure you're having a pulse on costs and the flow of things, of the time, like the timeline, the better you're going to become as a developer. And so I think it's instrumental in order to just become very good at what you do.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Josephine, this has been a great conversation. If anybody listening wants to follow what you're doing, learn more about what you got going on, where can they find you?
Instagram is the best way. So Josephine Saffert, and then, Saffert Develop. Yeah, that's the best way.
Easy enough. All right, guys, appreciate you all for joining us. We'll see y'all in the next one.
Awesome.
Are you looking to take the next step toward investing in commercial real estate but don't know where to go? CRE Central offers a comprehensive education and coaching platform designed to help you get started. Our online courses cover a wide range of topics, from the fundamentals to advanced strategies, ensuring you have the knowledge and skills needed to thrive in this competitive industry. As a member, you'll gain access to our exclusive online community and monthly group coaching calls, providing you with valuable networking opportunities and personalized guidance from experienced professionals. Whether you're a beginner or looking to take your career to the next level, CRE Central has the resources you need. Visit www.crecentral.com to learn more.